project, and then when you get it all done, then maybe you jump out of an Azure solution and go into a locally hosted solution. And that way you kind of get the mix and the match. So you put the things up into the cloud that can be distributed, that are very easy to shift resources around, and the things that you need to have more control over, maybe those things don't even go into the cloud.
It sounds like privacy and access control and design flexibility are some of the challenges with a cloud computing world.
Oh, yeah.
When it comes to the latest changes in SQL Server 2008, how has it helped the data warehousing world and business intelligence in general?
Well, some of the big things are just the scalability of SQL Server has just grown immensely. It used to be that a database that was in terabytes was a big database. I dealt with a database a few years ago. It was 2.5 terabytes. Well, it was more like 10 years ago now, but it was 2.5 terabytes. And it was considered just this, enormous database. And by today's standards, 2.5 terabytes really isn't a big database. Mm-hmm. And quite a few things that they've brought into SQL Server now have allowed that to continue to grow and expand. Things like sparse columns, where if you've only got a few columns filled out that fill up out of millions and millions of columns, instead of storing metadata to indicate that you don't have data for all those rows, you can just use a sparse columns data structure, and all that metadata just doesn't exist, and SQL Server knows not to look for the data. Quite a few other things that they've done is with the join optimization, they've added in what's called star join queries that allow you to optimize data warehousing queries behind the scenes. So it's nothing that you actually have to do. It's just a behind-the-scenes kind of thing that leverages some internal structures of SQL servers so they can return results faster. And then, looking a little bit into the future with Project Madison that is coming out a little later next year, Microsoft has gone to the point where they can have hundreds of commodity servers serving up terabytes and petabytes of data, and you can get really large result sets with millions of rows in just seconds. And then, looking at some of the things that are coming just next year with the Power Pivot for Excel and SharePoint, people are going to be able to go out there and just grab, if they've got this data file that they want to compare up to data that's already in their database, they can go up there, they can just drop it in their data into Excel, compare it up to the cubes and the data warehouses that you have out on your network, and they can serve up reports straight into SharePoint without having to go down to the developers to have them pull all the stuff in and build all these processes for them. And so users are being empowered to be able to go out there and do the things that they want to do. With SQL Server 2008 release, Microsoft added in the Report Builder 2 tool, and this is basically an extension of the report modeling tool that they had in with SQL Server 2005. But instead of being limited to just being able to do reports off of the report model, which was the limitation for 2005, with SQL Server 2008, you can do the report model, or you can go up against a data set, or you can go up against pretty much any data source that any of the developers can go to. So, business users that are out in the real world dealing with real results can go out there and make reports that are as good as what a developer could do behind the scenes for them. And so rather than having to spin up their own little Access database to throw this all together, they can just open up Report Builder and just start pulling in information from all of the data sources that they know about already.
Tim, in your world, how has SQL 2008 helped or not helped, or what kind of challenges have you seen with SQL 2008?
I hate to disappoint, but ultimately, I can tell you from a technical perspective, SQL 2008 appears to make the SQL developers' lives a lot easier, but other than that, and removing some of the risks and accelerating some of the work, speed, for all intents and purposes, from a project management perspective, it doesn't make a lot of effect. Jason, have you seen anything on the projects you've worked with 2008 that would indicate that using 2008 makes projects work more smoothly?
Just the ability to take things that you used to have to budget extra time in for. So if you wanted to do, say you wanted to do encryption, you need to encrypt the entire database. From a project standpoint, in SQL Server 2005, encrypting the entire database was going to be a monstrous task to be able to do. And then, with SQL Server 2008, it's just a property that you turn on for the database. So from a project management perspective, it just makes things easier because there's less to do. But nothing that really beyond, a new capability comes in, so there's less work to do. Nothing beyond that.
And that fits very well to what I was saying. It really comes down to it makes things easier for the SQL developers, and thereby also removes a lot of risk to the project because things are less complex, makes them able to do more faster, and that, from a project management perspective, is a good thing.
Okay, I hope you all enjoyed the discussion about database, and let's hope we get some questions about that. Anyway, we'll get back to our musical programming, and in the next, for the remainder of the hour, the next hour, we'll play more soft rock, Bangla music, then move toward hard rock and heavy metal. So stay tuned. And before we move to the next set of music, let's hear a few more announcements from our sponsors.